Public business session, call to order, and pledge to the flag. Madge, will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kathy, it says roll call.
Yes. Councilmember Connie. Here. Rodriguez. Present. Strong. Here. Stransky.
Yes.
Mayor Duvall.
Here. So, this is the anniversary of the passing of one of our, I guess, a friend of mine and Kathy's from school, and also a city employee, Jeanette Pinion, passed away a couple of years ago, 12 years ago, and she was murdered. And I would like to take a moment of silence in remembrance of Jeanette. So could you please join me in a moment of silence? Thank you, everybody. All right, public communication. The council welcomes participation in its meetings. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person so that everyone may be given an opportunity to be heard. To expedite matters and avoid repetition, whenever any group of persons wishes to address the council on the same subject matter, the mayor may request that a spokesperson be chosen by a group. This item is limited to matters under the jurisdiction of the City of Willits, which are not on the posted agenda. Public criticism of City Council, Commissions, boards, and agencies will not be prohibited. However, no action shall be taken. This came up at the last meeting. I kind of want to take a chance to educate folks here that this means that if you want to complain about what's happened in Ukiah, it's not under our jurisdiction, so it's not something we would hear. And that's reference to that. Also, no action shall be taken means that because it's not agendized, so if you wanted to talk about the sewer problems on Pine Street or something like that, yes, that is under our jurisdiction, but if it's not agendized by law, we can't talk about it at today's meeting. So you can come up and say, my sewer isn't working, or my city tree next to me is doing X, and so it's not that we don't care, that we don't want to respond to it, but we're prohibited from talking about those things. So I kind of wanted to kind of put that out there because some folks were kind of talking about like, hey, you're not going to take action. That doesn't mean we're not going to, but it means it's something that if it's of interest, kind of like some of the subjects on today's agenda came about from public coming forward and asking us to discuss something, we bring it back later on as our business can be squeezed in with other business that needs to happen. So I'm kind of taking the opportunity to explain that. So kind of feel like sometimes I got to play the dad role and explain these things so that people aren't hurt or the feelings aren't hurt that they felt ignored. So at this point, I'll see if anybody wants to come up on any matters not on the agenda but want to speak before us. Going. Okay, gone. All right. Item 3A, discussion and direction regarding request by a local church to install a Christmas tree in Bud Snider Park, having a tree lighting ceremony with recitation of the Christmas story. All right. If you could state your name and...
Good evening, council, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jim Semish. I'm the pastor of Calvary Chapel, Willits. We would like to put on a Christmas tree lighting event in Bud Snider Park in December, where we're going to recite the Christmas tree, the Christmas story, have warm goodies. We think it'll be a really nice event for the entire community, just bringing people together. It's very common all across the country. I'm sure many of us have been to those. We're asking permission to not only put the tree up, but to leave it up throughout December for people in the community to come and just enjoy. I'm thinking of in San Francisco, right in the heart of the community, they have that gigantic Christmas tree where people just come and gather and bring their families, and it just brings out a really nice feeling for the season. We do have a certificate of insurance that would release the city from any liability. The tree would be lit with solar-powered LED lights, have a barricade around it, and it would be anchored to the ground.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions of our speaker?
Yes, sir.
My concern is that when you anchor the tree, you're going to go down with augers, and I want you to be aware of where the water lines are in the park to make sure that you don't auger into one of the water lines.
Absolutely.
And we can help with that.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else?
Well, I thought I would prefer to hear it from any public, but then I do have a comment or a few concerns that I think should be addressed.
Okay.
I can do it
I'm looking to
now.
hear from the public.
Okay, so before anybody else here speaks, if there's somebody else from the public that would like to either ask questions of this man or come forward, now's the time to do it. Going, back up here then.
All right, I think we'll have to go on what we've heard outside of these chambers.
So
Madge?
I think the main concern that I have is that this is something that city-owned property is open to public expression, obviously, and so we don't necessarily endorse or, espouse any particular ceremony or particular church or anything.
Right.
But it is open, so it would also need to be open in case other groups wanted to do something similar or something different with public parks. And so I think it would be important to have a sort of time restriction on how much of the use of the park is open to a particular group, just so that we do continue to offer equal access to everybody. So I think 2 to 3 weeks rather than an entire month would be
That's
more.
exactly what we were thinking. We were thinking of having the event on either December 8th or December 15th, one of those dates, and then, from there on out. So a couple weeks max, just right after Christmas is over, come and take the tree down.
That would be more acceptable. And then, of course, that we have to make sure about the insurance, that it covers every possible thing. Those are the main concerns.
I do have a copy of the insurance with the city listed on it with me tonight.
And do you have anything you want to say?
I have a legal question.
Go ahead.
Jim, let's say that somebody came to us that was unrelated to Christmas and they wanted to put up something that was representative of their group but was either political or what some people might consider offensive. If we did this, are there ways that we can craft it to ensure that free speech is ensured, but also that there isn't anything that's offensive to our community that's placed in the park, so to speak? I know that
Well,
sounds...
some people might be offended by a Christmas tree.
Right.
And I think the distinction is whether it's hate speech and whether you're inciting a riot or whether you're doing something that is truly going to bring out violent reactions or something like that. If it's just as the public has the right to stand behind the podium at every one of our meetings and engage and say whatever they want, basically, this is a public forum for that. Similarly, the parks are considered a public forum where you should not deny an applicant just because you don't like the speech. But I know what your concern is. Are we going to there now be having cross burnings or people with extreme racist views? And I don't think that's going to happen. And I don't think that giving permission to this group to have a Christmas ceremony is therefore going to bring all the nuts out to similarly use our park to engage in offensive speech. But I could look into that more and see what the actual permissible restrictions can be. I think it's basically really hate speech that you can regulate.
And, go ahead.
That's a different topic, so if you had something else to say about that, then...
I just wanted to point out, we have had a tree lighting, I think, by the chamber at the Babcock Park in the past and other places. The museum is county property, but the Babcock Park was ours for several years, and I think it was technical issues or something that we stopped doing it there. Or I think once the hospital closed, it wasn't exactly the best place, I guess, so.
One thing you need to do is not run afoul of the Establishment Clause of the Constitution by using public money and public resources to allow something like this. And examples are the 10 Commandments in front of a courthouse at county expense, and a permanent structure like that. That's considered an establishment violation. But in our situation, we're not using public funds, we're not using public resources, we're not storing the equipment for them. It's entirely being paid for by this group, and it's basically a free speech issue and not an Establishment Clause issue.
So Greta, you had something?
So my only concern would be if the tree were vandalized at all in the middle of the night, that there be someone from your organization available to come and immediately deal with it so that it's not left to city staff, such as the police, who are already, short-staffed.
Yes, absolutely. That's not a problem for us whatsoever.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yes.
And is there a provision that would allow for, so that if any other individual wanted to do this, that they would come and put an application in, so to speak, with the city and get permission to do this? Or can anybody, once we pass this, then come and just say, well, the city council's done this, now today I'm going to put mine out?
So you're thinking like next year, somebody beats them to the punch and says
Or
they want
let's say a week later, somebody goes down to the park and puts something up. Did we put a provision, is there any kind of provision so far in this concept of, we don't necessarily have to charge for a permit per se, but that we know that we've got the insurance on anybody else who wants to do something in the park, that sort of thing?
We're not issuing a permit, are we?
No.
We currently don't actually issue permits to use but Snider Park.
But he's coming before us, telling us that he has the insurance, that he's gonna do it this way, and we're saying, yes, if you do these things, but we aren't really telling the next person who comes along that they have to do these things.
Well, if someone else came along and did something that exposed the city to liability and for injury or property damage, we would put a halt to it. If you've got a free speech right to stand on a soapbox and talk, but if you're going to erect something on city property, we don't have to allow that, particularly if it's going to create a liability risk.
So then do we have a process for allowing that? Or should we have a process?
City property can be rented. We rent out some facilities, don't we?
So we don't currently rent out but Snider Park?
Right. So I suppose we could create some kind of a policy that the council approves by a resolution that relates to uses of the park, authorized uses of the park and procedures and insurance requirements and such.
I'm just trying to think fairly, both now and in the future.
Yeah.
match.
I couldn't give a suggestion.
Yeah, I was just going to say, couldn't we just have a sort of an informal policy, not a permit requirement or anything, that ongoing use of the park for anything, beyond just a one time you go out there and you're talking, but if you're going to use the park over a period of a couple of weeks, or if you're going to erect anything, that you need to ask the city council for approval, and that the standard is going to be the same. It's you have the right to do it, but you have to be assured that you are being safe and that you have insurance and that you have somebody on call in case there's a problem.
We could certainly develop an informal policy that someone comes and inquires, and you can hand them the copy of the policy, and this is what you got to do.
I don't want to cause any extra work, but I think that should be an understanding, if we're approving this, that the same approach would be used for any other similar.
Go ahead.
So I would suggest maybe that since we're doing this for this instance, that we do monitor our parks very closely, and that we now are getting direction from council that if someone else comes and installs something without our permission, that we inform them that they will need to come to council, and that because we have the right to have reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions, and city staff can absolutely say that and ask that they come just as this gentleman said that he wanted to do this, and we recommended that he come to council to do that, and we can continue to do that.
We just want to ensure cities safe and.
So I would move that we approve this request, that it be a maximum of 3 weeks, that we have proof of insurance and a spokesperson to be contacted if there's any issues that arise during that period.
And may I just say thank you for setting a good example so that anyone else in the community who would like to use the park in such a way, follow your example.
Thank you so much, I appreciate it.
Do I have a second?
Can I get a clarifying question?
Yes.
I was trying to find it real quick. What day were you hoping to put this up?
Either December 8th, let me pull out my calendar.
So that would be within the Madge's motion of the 3 weeks?
It's December 7th, I think, or the following week, December 14th.
Okay, so it's in the, and I'll second the motion then.
Okay. Any further discussion up here? Anybody from the public want to give it a shot one more time before we take a vote up here? Okay, hearing none. Call for the vote, Kathy.
Councilmember Connie.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Strong.
Yes.
Stransky.
Yes.
Mayor Gonzalez.
Okay, we'll say yes to trees. Thank you very much. Thank you for
Look
jumping
forward
to our
to seeing
group.
it.
So. All right,
Yeah, thank you for your community spirit.
all right. And item 3B, discussion and direction to staff regarding amendments to the Willits Municipal Code pertaining to mobile vendors, including food trucks. This would be a Dusty thing. I'll take a burrito with that, okay?
What's that?
I said I'll take a burrito with that.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Dusty Dooley, still your Community Development Director. Thankful for it. Just quickly introduce this item. No actions being taken tonight. This is just before you for discussion and possible direction to staff regarding amendments to the Willits Municipal Code that pertains to mobile vendors, including food trucks. This was a request by City Council to bring this matter before you. It was based on some public testimony that we received from some folks that are in the audience tonight that are interested in establishing food trucks in our community. And just to quickly go over the packet and some background information that I've discovered since I was last before you. You have, of course, the agenda summary. And I want to point out one error on the agenda summary. If you look at the last sentence before the recommended action at the end of the agenda summary, please ignore that sentence. That's essentially a cut and paste error. It says staff recommends after holding a public hearing and receiving comments on the proposed ordinance. There is no proposed ordinance tonight, so I apologize if that confused you. This was put together in a little bit of haste. But anyways, you also have some background information. I found out that that the city had taken up this issue in discussion in fairly recent past, mainly I guess 2013, 2014. That included several meetings with the Revi Ed Committee, which ultimately led to a recommendation in front of the City Council, and then an action and direction by the City Council to have staff modify the Willits City Code pertaining to mobile vendors. It doesn't appear that staff followed up with that. And I think the main reason why was you had a moment in time where you were working without planning staff. And so I think it was direction that was given to the previous planner, wasn't able to complete before his retirement. And then I think I was the next one to come on board, and I failed to recognize that direction. So, but certainly it's still important to recognize that past direction. So with attachment A, you have a memo from the previous community development director to the Revi Ed Committee. Then attachment B is the agenda summary. It says for a meeting date of May 14th. It appears that actually the agenda summary was prepared for the second meeting in May. But that includes the recommendations from the Revite Ed Committee. And then you also have attachment C, which is the minutes of the May 28, 2014 meeting, where the previous council directed staff to make a number of changes to the city code with a few different revisions compared to what the Revite Ed Committee had come up with in their recommendation. And finally, you have attachment D. If we do go through the process of amending our code, there's an opportunity to update it to also comply with state law, specifically SB 946 related to sidewalk vendors. Sidewalk vendors are essentially defined as either a stationary or mobile vendor on sidewalk or a public pathway or other pedestrian path. Yeah. So with all that in front of you, I'll be interested to hear from the public and to get possible direction from the council. I'll just say I'd say the main point of contention is the restriction on the location of food trucks. Currently, our Willits City Code section 5.28.010 states that it is unlawful for any person to sell or offer for sale any merchandise of any description from either stationary or portable stands or from vehicles upon either main or commercial streets or upon any side street within 1 block distance from either main or commercial streets in the city. And I'll note that the 1 block isn't defined, so sometimes staff has to do a little bit of interpreting on that part of it. But I believe that's going to be probably the main point of contention that folks may want to speak to tonight. Just very quickly from me, from a planning perspective, one of staff's main concerns has to do with, I would say, the potential food trucks interaction with existing businesses. Maybe I'll call it congestion, in that you might have a parking lot that's shared by multiple businesses, and that's a location where a potential food truck would like to locate. One of the issues from a planning perspective is that food truck going to operate within parking spaces that are otherwise necessary for the existing businesses? Is there adequate parking for patrons that want to spend money at that food truck? Are we paying attention to things like, is there adequate room for the queuing of individuals that are purchasing or picking up food, and they're not having to line up in the line of traffic or otherwise interfering with the circulation routes for traffic within the parking lot? So sometimes when you have tight spaces where you have multiple businesses sharing it, there can be some compatibility issues. Certainly there's layers to it, but that was one of the main concerns that I wanted to point out when we're thinking about creating additional regulations for these guys. So with that, I'll try to answer any questions.
It says here in my agenda that it's private property that they would be on. Is that correct? And so my question is, would it be every day? Would it be occasional? Or can you answer that?
We probably could get requests for all of the above. Yeah.
Depends on what we allow.
Right, so you may want to consider restricting the hours that a food truck can operate. You may require them to move daily and not, continuously park on site. So you're right, those are things that you're going to want to consider.
And another thing is, I noticed in here that it said that there would be disposable containers and stuff, but what about restrooms?
That's another thing to consider. A lot of jurisdictions do require available restrooms to be part of any approved food truck location, but not always.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I have some thoughts, but I'd love to hear from the public again first.
Okay, then I'll see if anybody from the public would like to speak to this. And if you come up, please state your name.
That doesn't amplify in the room.
Okay, great.
That's for the TV.
That's for the TV.
That's why we have you state your name, so
Oh, I
those
see.
that tell the not. And for
Hi,
the-
my name is Laura Rowland, and I'm here to talk about the food trucks, the ordinance. Yes. So thank you so much for agendizing this issue that we brought before the council a couple months ago. And we are asking that the council amend the current food truck ordinance. I was really happy to hear what Dusty had to say about this having been done in the past and the city council agreeing to those amendments. So we've got all these visions. So I'm Laura, this is my sister Nicole, and Nicole and I started a food truck that we actually started over 1.5 years ago, and it finally, we were fully permitted just in June. So we started operation, and we've created all these visions and ideas for what we could do with that business. And we're limited by the current ordinances here in Willits. We'd love to bring this to the community of Willits, and that's always been our vision. We also have developed other visions, like having a food truck night, as many communities do, and we'd want it to be in a highly visible location, such as Brown's Corner would be a nice location at the south end of town. We could use their northern lot and then create other food trucks. It's not in a, it addresses some of the concerns that Dusty brought up earlier about interacting with other businesses. There's not a lot going on down at the south end of town, and I don't mean any disrespect to the current businesses there, but it could use a boost. There's adequate parking, there's room to line up, it won't interfere with traffic, and I think it's could be compatible. Another thing that happened over the last 5 months of being in business is Willits Furniture offered, because that is just on the other side of the 1 block zone. It was a safe place. I approached Mike and he was very generous and let us stay there or park as often as we wanted. He would have welcomed us. We got so much good feedback from our community, from the residents of Willits. They want to be able to find us in a regular place. They were stoked to have food trucks in the community. They would like to see us there on consistent days, and they would love it if we could organize food truck nights. So we're a business. We spent 1.5 years, as I said, building our trailer. We've spent thousands of dollars. Sorry, my time's up.
Oh, not yet, but that's the
okay. So we've invested in our business and also in the community as a brick and mortar would, and we'd like the opportunity to grow more. We don't give back to the city coffers as much as a brick and mortar does yet. Maybe we will. But we also don't do as much as a brick and mortar does. So we consider us an investment in our community. And competition's not a bad thing. It's a vital part of capitalism.
That means you're out of time now.
Okay, I'm out of time. And a food truck vibe is very cool and a very lively event, and we'll bring people out. And can I say my final dramatic point? I have quarterly taxes to pay to the city as a business. So if we had more business, I could pay more in taxes. Thank you.
Did you want to speak?
Oh, and then Nicole. Yes.
Right now?
Yeah, did you want to speak?
Yeah, I'd
You
love
want to
to.
state your name?
My name's Nicole, first and last.
Doesn't matter.
Just
I'm a food truck owner-operator since July. It's new, it's exciting, and it's hard work. And I think what has surprised me the most out of doing this at fairs and festivals out of our county and out of our area is the vendor community. There really is an active vendor community, and they look out for each other. They work together with other vendors to encourage the other vendors to up their game, to bring a better product, to create a better vibe. So there's a real concern within the vending community that we present and provide something dynamic and something that's really going to bring a benefit to the community and to the consumers. So that I didn't expect that, and that has been really comforting. And I'm understanding that it's more than just trying to sell some ice cream. It's more than just trying to, make a couple bucks selling your hot dogs out of your truck. So it really is about creating something for a community. It's about creating communities. And in other cities, they have in a bigger city, they kind of use these food truck nights as a way to create mini communities. So, neighborhoods will have food truck night, and the people will come out, the residents will come out, and they'll all picnic in a park where they otherwise would not do this. And it's a way to bring people out of the house at night where they otherwise would not. And what happens when people come out of the house? Well, they're around, they might pick up a book, they might go grab a sweater, they might, who knows what they'll do, but they're out and they're in the community and they're enjoying it. And I think that's what we put so much time into, making our cities safe and enjoyable. This is what we want people to do. We want people to enjoy them, and I think this is a great way to encourage that. My family's been here in Willits since the 60s. I've been here for 16 years. I recently moved down to Ukiah. I still love Willits. And I think that what I'm hoping for is that I'm hoping for an amendment to the existing ordinance, particularly the location restrictions. I would love, personally, my friends own restaurants here. My friends own businesses here. I don't want to impede anybody's ability to thrive. Totally the opposite. Willits has taken an economic hit, and that concerns me. I want what's best for Willits. I know we all do. I know everybody here wants what's best for Willits. So if this turns out to be something that we think could benefit Willits, I would love to discuss more what we can do to the existing ordinance, how we can amend it to make it work for everybody, existing business owners included. Oh, I think that your concerns are going to be public safety, cleanliness, and those are all things that we are 100% willing to address, and we want that is our concern as well. And then something that Laura hit on at the very end, food trucks are fun.
You're out of time now.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Would anybody else like to speak? Folks, you're done speaking. Why don't you have a seat?
Howdy.
Hi there.
My name's Topher.
Topher?
Yes. I'm a business owner on the south end of town. My business area tends to be overlooked by the community at times, and I feel something fresh and new would draw them to the area. Being a storefront owner on the main drag, I notice many tourists driving through, and I feel mobile businesses like food or of any kind would give people reason to stop and patronize other businesses on the south end of town. In the past, food trucks have had a stigma of being low quality, aka the roach coach. But in the last 10 years, the mobile food industry has boomed and has become a new trend amongst younger and older generations and to people that consider themselves foodies and love trying new stuff. One of the benefits of food trucks is it stimulates the economy. It brings in revenue to the city of Willits via business licenses and taxes. Utilization of big open lots on the main drag that aren't being utilized brings in foot traffic to districts that normally don't get the same traffic as like downtown areas. Increases sales to the surrounding businesses. It also gives opportunities for people to start a new business at a lower cost with the possibility of expanding in the future, because not everyone has the $100,000 or $200,000 it takes to start a business in a building. So it's ideal for first-time business startups and young entrepreneurs. Concerns out there that established businesses may feel threatened by an article, but from an article that I read in The Economist earlier today, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, counties that have experienced higher growth in mobile food services have also had quicker growth in the restaurants and catering businesses in their area. So it doesn't actually impede on other businesses, it helps growth, brings in more foot traffic. This one statement I've heard echoed in our community is that there's a lack of variety and choices in eating establishments. The mobile food industry in America has grown from $500 million annually in 2013 to almost $2 billion in 2018, which shows that this isn't just some passing trend, but an intricate part of the food industry at this point. And lastly, my best advice on this would be to be open to new ideas and friendly to change, because change is already here. And with some creativity, maybe you can turn it into a catalyst for good things. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to come?
One more.
All right.
And I don't think I have 3 minutes worth to say.
Okay.
So my name's Shauna, and my family owns Brown's Corner. And we started this whole idea because Nicole and Laura are family members of mine. And I'm taking over my family's business, and we need help getting people to our business. And so I thought, oh my gosh, what'll bring people go buy gas if they can get gelato in my business. So I called Dusty and I asked him if we could, and he said no because of the ordinance. So that's what got the whole ball rolling. Another thing I didn't know, and I'm sure you all know, but like the community doesn't know, that mobile vending isn't just food trucks. It's also my mom's neighbor who wants to sell, beautiful woodwork or things like that. The honey lady, I can't allow her to sell those items either on our property. So it'd be nice to, I just would love to continually support our community in their, even their little endeavors that help them supplement their income. I have space for food trucks. We don't own the huge back lot, but I have access to renting it if we wanted to actually create a real venue. But I think that people aren't going to buy in with their food trucks unless we can lax the rules a little bit first and try to get them on Main Street. And if it's only the south end of town, if it's only me or like Power Supply, I think that would just help get people here. And I think there's a coalition of food trucks like through Mendocino County. We could arrange once a week they come to us and then they go to Ukiah, and maybe just during the summers we do some kind of nights like that. So there are a lot of things on the internet that are positive towards these food truck communities, and so hopefully we can further discuss this. Hopefully you guys will keep it going, and we can work with you and negotiate some things that help us bring a little bit more to our community. Sorry, a little nervous. Thank you.
Is there anybody else? I see Tony Madrigal walking up. Tony, then Bear.
Tony Madrigal from, I just wanted to address this. Listening to him, and I was involved in when it was one block off Main Street, one block off Commercial. My real concern is if it's just one or two, but it can be a whole bunch of them. It could be 30. It could be 3 pizza places that put a brick and mortar pizza place out of business, because it does take away, the pie's only so big, there's only so many people. I think if it was thought out right, I think we could probably make something work, whether it was on a certain days or, in certain areas. I'd hate to see a pizza place right next to Pizza to Go. And you're right, I mean, you can get into a mobile business for $50,000 where some people have $200,000 or $300,000 or $400,000 invested in it, and they're just hanging on by their teeth right now. Mobile vendors, whether it's a food vendor, whether it's a jewelry, whether it's clothing, whether it's furniture, I mean, where do you stop? So I think it's something maybe needs to be brought to Revide, thought about, talked about, and try to make it work for everybody, for the people that are here. Because I'd hate to see more empty business fronts. We already have a lot. I hate to see more because,
So Tony, since you mentioned Revite Ed, would you be willing at Revite Ed if we asked for this to come back to Revite Ed to work with?
I think it should, and
representatives?
I think, we should invite, the mobile food people so they can know what our concerns are, and maybe we can work together and make it all work.
Can I say something? Is that okay?
You want to ask him a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, it was a thought I had before. So in Ukiah, when they have the music in the park, standing businesses like Crush come down, they bring a table, they throw up a table, they bring food. Like any business
And I
could
agree,
come and be
and I
part
agree
of
with that, and I think that's something where Revite would talk about, if
Yeah,
there'd be a
so-
certain day where you're at the, whether you're at the farmer's market, if you had different events at the park, that's where you would show up. Maybe there would be a day that you would go to Brown's Corner and you would set up there, and you would invite them. But to set up as a business, we just had to go through a bunch of ADA stuff. Right, but I mean, a food vending truck, what's their rules? I know we have to pay for, we have a grease trap, we have to pay the city a fee, we have to have it pumped out. What's the rules to, how are they gonna deal with that? And I'm not talking about, yours might be totally different, but we don't know. It might be, a fried place that fries chicken or whatever. So I think bring it to Revite and trying to make it work and talk to the people that want to do it and come up with a happy medium. I think that's actually the way to do it, where it doesn't hurt and it helps everybody.
That's our intention.
Okay? Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak? Oh, Bear, sorry. You
Pass.
gonna pass?
It was a good conversation.
Good, okay. Again, I'm gonna ask anybody else? Going, okay, we'll bring it back up here. So on the site. Would anyone like to?
Yeah, do you want to go first?
Sure. I put this out there on Facebook, asking the community what they thought of the food trucks, what their concerns were. And I would say overwhelmingly, the responses I got were positive. People were excited about the idea of new types of food, new life in downtown. Somebody mentioned it would be great if there was a food truck at the skate park on weekends, so kids who are there, families who are there, have something to eat. Some contractor that I know said he's running all day long between jobs, and if there were a couple of food trucks parked in front of Mendo Mill on Commercial Street, he could grab lunch quickly. He doesn't have time to go and sit down somewhere, and he doesn't want to eat fast food all the time. He'd like to go get a Euro or a gelato or something cool and fun to eat. Somebody else mentioned bars, closing up. There's a dirt parking lot, city parking lot on Main Street. If there was a food truck there, to serve people who have had a little too much to drink, go and get something to eat, sober up a little before you wander down the road. There's interest for sure, but it also does, as Tony said, have to be balanced to make sure that it doesn't harm the businesses that are here and have invested the time and the money and have been an integral part of the community for a long time. So that would be my goal, looking at this, to make sure that it was something that gave new opportunity for new entrepreneurs, but also was cautious and respectful of our current restaurant community.
Sabrina?
Yeah, I got quite a bit of feedback too, and some of the comments and questions that came up is, I want to show respect for all the work that was done before, and I think beyond today there needs to be a further conversation. But questions that came up were, why was Commercial Street included? I have one block within Main Street, but what's going on Commercial Street that's competitive? So that's worth looking into. Another idea is if we allow mobile food vendors, and we do have an ADA concern in this community, is there a way that we could make it so that there was a sponsoring business? So if it's a full day event, there's a porta potty that's ADA accessible, or if it's not a group of people participating with mobile vending together, say it's one person, one mobile truck, that there's a sponsoring business that will allow use of their restrooms, that sort of thing. There was concerns about parking on Main Street, on the street itself, because Main Street is so limited on parking, although in discussions with people, they were comfortable with the side streets, Commercial Street or other streets, but Main Street parking. Special events, everybody was in support of that. Sundays seem to be, and even in talking with Tony, we both agreed that on Sundays many of the local businesses aren't open, and not just saying yes, we'll do it, but actually promoting that yes, come, our parks are open on Sunday, or this area of our town is open. Let's support that type of business as a part of our economic development plan and trying to promote entrepreneurship. And then tying into that, Stephanie, was that would it be possible to have our music instead of on Thursdays? Could we do it on Sundays when more people could attend? Many people in discussing this idea had said, I really wanted to go to the music, but Thursdays just wasn't good for me. What would be the possibility of doing Sunday? Can you imagine if we had the music and we had the mobile trucks? So yeah, those are some thoughts that I heard from the community. Yeah.
So, Madge?
Yeah, I like what I'm hearing, and I agree both in like being cautious about not opening up so wide that it does outcompete some of our brick and mortar places, but it does seem like the current restrictions are really overly aggressive or restrictive. They're too restrictive, and they're discouraging these innovative truck food vendors, and I think that it would be a benefit to really look at that and open it up. I also really find it inequitable to have this one block from Main Street or one block from Commercial Street. If we kept anything like that, I'd like it to be something that's consistent, like number 200 feet or something, because, you know, here on Commercial Street, for example, you've got some blocks that go forever, you know, they go all the way to the hills, you know. There is no other block. So how, you know, what about having a food truck where the old, where Big Daddy is or whatever? I mean, it's way back off the street.
Old Little Lake
but there's
Industries.
Old Little Lake Industries, that's what I was trying to think of. Places like that, or at our big hardware stores with a huge parking lot. It seems to me there's a lot of room for opening that up. And I also really like that we already allow food trucks at special events, concerts, the rodeos and whatever that we have, that is allowed under the ordinance, I believe. And we could perhaps also have a periodic food truck fair, you know, like at least once a month anyway, where we could have food trucks come and have a designated time and have it be a big party. And maybe if it's successful, it could be more than once a month. But I think there's a lot of room for expanding those opportunities. And I hope it doesn't take another 6 months. I think my one concern about, you know, booting it over to Revite Ed, and I know our staff is also really busy, is that Revite Ed doesn't meet all that often, and then you prepare for that, and then, you know, 2 or 3 months. Anyway, it could take a really long time. If we could maybe just have an ad hoc committee that would just look at this and come up with some recommendations to bring back here and then direct staff. I just would like it to be expeditious, that's all. I'd like, by next summer, we should have our act together on this.
The things that I brought up originally, private property is one thing, and if you're going to put it on public roads and that's totally a different thing, and so we need to work that out. If that's what the Revite Ed is the first place it kind of goes to, if you can go to this instead of another ad hoc committee, and try it there. And there's not going to be a real easy answer that everybody's going to get thrilled with. I just want you guys all to know that. And so, you know, we'll do the best we can in the Revite Ed and see what they come up with, and coming back to here when they work something out. Thank you very much for coming anyhow.
Well,
What is Revite Ed? I'm not familiar.
it is a committee of the city where we discuss business, city, kind of.
So you guys will sit down and do like a think tank on it?
Well, yeah, the idea is that's the.
Is that closed, or is that something that's?
It's an open meeting. It's an open meeting that.
Stands for Revitalization and Economic Development.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The problem with the Revite Ed meetings is that they're often on a weekday in the middle of the day, which is hard for working people to attend. They are open to the public, but it can be difficult to get to them.
And as a member of the Revite Ed, I would say that I don't advise that. We've already got some other projects, and to be perfectly honest, we are not very productive in the things that we're accomplishing, and I would opt more for an ad hoc where it's in the evening and the public could come and give input.
I would agree.
Are you volunteering for an ad hoc, ladies?
Thanks, Sabrina. I think this is important, and I would be willing to come.
I mean, I guess the way I feel is that, like Larry, I want to see that interaction because I want the brick and mortar businesses to kind of speak with you guys. And in a perfect, what is it, in a positive negotiation, not everybody walks away thinking they won. Everybody feels like they lost a little bit. And I think that there's some genuine concerns on all sides. And I can tell you that over the years, the reason it went that way, because I sat in the back and listened, is that there was probably more business activity on commercial at that point during those periods. There was also a perception there would be more. That's why commercial was kind of the oddball. And the idea was that hey, we don't want to throw the folks that are giving it a go in the downtown, throw them out of business by allowing some sort. We also had some pop-up vendors that were eventually, I think, closed down because of health reasons in the past, because they set up, I think one set up in Brown's Corner and in the dust there. Yeah, I'm very positive. Well, sorry, yeah, that dirt lot. And so there was an issue regarding cleanliness and that. And yeah, so again, I think that's why I get what you guys are saying, that it's not productive, but I think that there needs to be a forum where there could be some discussion. I would like to see it move quicker than not. So that's what I'm saying. If we have some volunteers for an ad hoc, I'm game to go that route. Otherwise, I'd say revite ed, because I do want a forum where the brick and mortar businesses can come in and have an opportunity to pop in and say, well, don't do it here, and this is why, and you have a chance to kind of speak, well, this is what we would do, or maybe come up with ideas for special events or Sundays or whatever that's agreeable to everybody.
Can I ask Tony, would it be reasonable for you to come to an evening ad hoc meeting? It's not, because it's restaurant, it's dinner time.
You know what, it was busy and I snuck out right now. I probably shouldn't have, but I did.
Okay.
So, yeah, I would. You know, and just really quick to address, when you said just on Main Street, at one time, there was...
Hey, Tony, do you think you'd come up here, because the public can't hear that? I'm sorry, just for a quick thing, but if you've got some history, I think maybe it's important that the public at home listens.
You know, at one time, it was probably about 5 or 6 years ago, this big van pulled up right in front of my restaurant, and they started selling T-shirts out there. And I asked them, you know, you're blocking, you know, my restaurant. Nobody can see the sign. He goes, we got every right to be here, you know. So I guess that's one of the reasons, you know.
They don't have a right to be here.
But, you know, what do you do? They were there for like 3 weekends. You know, so that's one of the reasons that we said one block off Main Street, because of that, you know. And we're on Main Street because people drive by and they say, oh, let's stop in and have something to eat. So, you know, that was probably, and then the other thing on Commercial Street, before Sabrina bought that, you know, that could have been a restaurant, that was a restaurant. So you didn't want a food truck right next to on the park. So that's, there again, that was probably the reasoning for that.
Kenny's Pie.
Well, permission from property owners would squash that if that was part of the amendment.
You know, so anyways, that was a reason for the one block. But like I said, you know, something that if you sit down and talk about it, you can probably make it work.
Yeah, and I think there was also talk when Mendel Mill was being built about having some sort of eatery inside of Mendel Mill or some satellite of a current business, and I don't think that ever made it to fruition. I know that when I think I was still chief and we sat through the TAC meetings, that had come up, and it did end up happening. So, and again, whether it was going to be a portable business, whatever, something in there, there was a thought of doing that. So, Mitch?
Yeah, I think we're getting some sort of sense of the council members' feelings about this, and I think it's really a nuts and bolts kind of working committee where you say, you know, there's an option A or B about this location, or an A and B about this location, or an A and B about how many, you know, how long a period can trucks be in certain locations. So it's really nuts and bolts, which gets a little beyond what I think at least my understanding of Revite Ed is most effective at doing it. But I do think it needs to be open to the stakeholders, both the proponents of food trucks and those who might be affected by it. And having gone through this with the cannabis ordinance, it was a lot of like reading provisions in different cities' ordinances and exactly which ones do we like and which one. So it's really nuts and bolts, getting down to the particulars and having options, and then the options come back up to the city council as a whole. You know, how far do we want to go in this direction or that direction? And I would be willing to serve on that. I don't have any particular axe to grind about it, but I just think I have experience at trying to draft the nuts and bolts of ordinances, and that's what we're getting to.
I'm open, so do I have some volunteers for?
Yes, I'll volunteer.
Yeah.
I think for an ad hoc, just 2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Max 2.
So,
My question, did you want, I'd like to ask Dusty about his availability. I didn't know whether you want a staff member at that or whether that's something that you wanted to do on your own.
well, I think at some point there would be a need for a staff member. Dusty, maybe you could,
I know you have a lot on your plate.
Yeah, as far as my availability, I think you're aware of a lot of the projects that I'm part of. I've got something like 400 to 600 hours of work over the next handful of months to complete. And that's mainly, the grant projects that you're aware of, as well as some exciting projects that are related to housing that are being proposed by various property owners. So those are certainly the priorities of the department at the moment. I always work with the city manager to reprioritize workloads almost on a weekly basis. So I do have very limited availability. And so if the question was, staff, please, get into the nuts and bolts and come up with something to present to us, I was prepared to say, well, boy, I'm about 6 months out from being able to really give something, this issue, the attention that it deserves. Not to say that I can't be available for a minimum amount of time to bounce ideas off of or what. So I'm not quite sure what commitment you're looking for from staff on an ad hoc committee level.
I would say that I agree. That's one of the reasons why I don't want to take it to rewrite ed, because I think what would happen is it's going to be dropped in your lap, and then you're going to have to feedback and have to put it all together. I think with an ad hoc committee with 2 council members, those 2 council members would have to work out all the details and work together as a team to figure out what are all the options. Then, once we've laid it all out and have a good plan, you hold the meeting, you get feedback, do you like option A, B, and get consensus in general, and then take it to you in a meeting and say, hey, what can and can't work here? And then if need be, we come back as an ad hoc committee if we have further questions, do it there. If we feel like we were able to work things out pretty quickly, then we bring it back before the council and we move forward so that we're not wasting all of this time talking in circles.
so I'm hearing ad hoc and that we won't take a lot of Dusty's time, but we will take some of his time. So I have 3 of you that want to do this.
Are willing anyway.
Yeah.
So only 2 can be, so
I think any of us are happy to not have more work, but we're all willing to step up.
Ditto.
all right.
If you 2 would like to have that in.
All right, then, at this point, Sabrina and Madge can get together on this.
Okay. And I second Sabrina's point, as Dusty has some really high priority stuff that we need to let him get to, and so we want to minimize how much of a burden this is on him.
But
his advice is really helpful too.
And again, I just want to see the reach out to the brick and mortar folks too, to have them be a part of that conversation so that their concerns can be addressed.
And an evening time that we will have to come up with some ideas and then make sure we have an email or contact list for people that are interested and let them know when that's going to be.
And other than Tony, if you have any other folks that they should contact, then get a hold of Madge or something.
Ask the chamber.
Get a few other people.
Great.
And
Try to make something work out for everybody.
All right.
And we'll reach out too and figure out what's a good time before we set a time.
If we could just, and I've sat on other committees, if we could just do it like, get it done. Sometimes
That's the purpose of the ad hoc.
It'll be 2 years and we still.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you all for struggling with this, and bringing it, and being patient, because the wheels of government move slowly, but we'll try to make it work better,
If
faster.
we do a good job pre-planning, it'll move quickly.
And there were, again, real valid concerns back then, and things have changed a little bit, so just so you all understand. Sitting in the back, I saw some instances, like Tony said, where folks weren't being good actors, and that, I think, is why the council at that stage reacted the way they did. But things have changed a little bit, and so And it sounds like everybody wants to work together, so thank you very much. All right, we are at item 3C, discussion and direction regarding proposed letter to PG&E regarding recent public safety power shutoffs, PSPS event. Stephanie.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. I'm Stephanie Gerbrandt, Sierra City Manager. In the last few weeks, we experienced a public safety power shutoff. Actually, we experienced two back-to-back. I believe that our city was very well prepared for this event, and we tried very hard to make sure that we received every bit of information we possibly could. However, getting information out of PG&E was a struggle, and both the county and the city and all the cities in California shared our frustration at the lack of information and current credible information that enabled us to act in the manner we would like. And we believe that it actually was very stressful on our residents and certainly on our staff. I talked to Senator McGuire's office about whether he was planning on discussing this, and his staff members told me that the county and Lake County and the cities within Lake County had held a meeting and were working on a very strongly worded letter. We had heard that the county was drafting a letter, and they actually voted on passing allowing the county administrator to send a letter discussing their issues with PG&E, which we actually shared. I did draft a letter for the mayor's signature and shared that with him. And the bullet points very much echo the county's letter. However, the beginning of the letter were some of the particular difficulties that we had, and I think those really centered on most of the information was going out to counties and not cities, but the information, and we were supposed to reach out to counties, but our county contact was not given information about the cities. And so although they were really very, very cooperative with us, the county worked very well with us, they just didn't have any information to give us. So it was difficult. This is just a draft letter. I welcome comments, and if you have seen typos, please tell me, and I can clean those up if this is something that you wish to do, and I'd be happy to do that.
Only thing I want is just use my legal name when you send it out, and
yes, and if people want a hard copy so they can make any proposed edits or corrections, I welcome that as well, and I can get that to you.
so you guys had a chance to look at the letter?
Yeah.
I like the letter. I don't think that you've had an opportunity to fully tell the community what the city did in regards to the PSP. Maybe this would be a good opportunity to highlight how busy Public Works was, what the Willits Police Department was doing. Maybe not everybody was aware. I know I saw, for example, the Willits PD out shining lights into businesses to make sure that things were safe. Not everybody was aware that they could plug in their cell phones. I'll let you elaborate.
Certainly. Actually, our leader of our HR department has actually put together a bit of a newsletter about our efforts in sort of talking about staff's participation. I was very proud of staff. We wanted to make sure, first of all, before the event, that we prepared as much as possible so that there would be no interruption in city services, and that we treated this not as an emergency or as a disaster, but as a seamless event so that we would have as few interruptions as possible. To that end, we rented generators. We had power wired, and the generators were able to be wired directly to the building to be very safe. We worked with an electrician to do that, and he was wonderful. We had staff coming in and making sure that people were taken care of and during regular business hours. We had public works staff, water staff, and wastewater staff on call because we were not given the exact times when the power would go off. So they were standing just ready for like, when was the power go off? Because we weren't told, and it was so frustrating. And up until the last minute, the maps didn't even show Willits on as being affected, but we sort of knew, we had a feeling that we were going to be, and it was very stressful, and it was just essential that our residents did not lose water, did not lose sewer service. We actually helped private businesses. We had a senior housing project that needed their tanks pumped out, and we helped them do that. Our police were ready to do so much, and our chief was doing patrol in the evenings. We were well prepared. The PG&E did promise that they would give us a community resource center, and however, they completely dropped the ball. We were not given one. Therefore, we opened City Hall so they could charge phones, and we didn't have heat, but there were enough people in there. It kept us warm, and it was nice because actually a lot of the community came out, and to the extent that I had information, I pasted it on the walls and gave announcements, and just so people were just, and Kathy and our public information officers, Kathy and Jim posted on Facebook and on our city website the most current information we could possibly get, to just pump out that information as much as we could. I think it was successful as much as it could be, but I'm very proud of just how hard our staff worked. There's a lot of overtime put in. I think one water operator actually slept at the plant the entire time, because just to make sure that that water was still pumping. And the dedication is really amazing.
You know, I stopped by one day when there were folks here charging their phones, and all of them had positive things to say. And I had one, should I say elderly, but older lady tell me that God bless the city for doing that. And I tried to tell her that, look, this is not a city council isn't doing this, that the staff was doing this, and that they made this available so that they could charge the phones, and that it wasn't a PG&E thing.
We didn't get any.
Yeah, but
we got no help.
and so that part of it I wanted to. And then the other thing I wanted to point out, I know you had Jim working on a grant also behind this?
Yes, Jim is actually, the state of California has money available to help cities and counties in PSP events. Unfortunately, a very tiny part of that is for cities. However, we are going to be going out for a grant in a way that we feel is creative, and that is to acquire some backup batteries for our solar power in our city hall. And we feel that since that's a green energy alternative, that has a good chance to win over other grant proposals. But again, it's a very small sliver that it was allowed to cities. For some reason, the focus has really been on counties, which is always frustrating.
And then one last question that came up from some people in the community is, will there be an opportunity for the city to talk about what we could do better? We did a great job, but we all know that there are things that we could do better in working with partners in our community, whether it was gas stations that weren't open, or stores that weren't open, or restaurants, or other types of businesses, schools. What are other ways that we could keep services open? And I know on the city's website you can click on the link and it'll tell you all the businesses that are open, but many places since that was produced have found ways to be open, so updating that. Will there be like an opportunity for you to sit down and say, this is what went well, this is what we could do better?
We are always, open to comments, and on if people want to send us those, it's perfectly welcome. I think we had as you know, we're short-staffed, and I did have one person going out and calling businesses to see whether they were open. That was a very frustrating enterprise for that person, and she did the best she could. And so it is all, we do the best we can with the staff we have, but
That's a good point. So what about PG&E offering those types of services to the community, where they can provide those resources of reaching out and finding what businesses have, what do businesses need, instead of the city themselves providing that? That's something that would be valuable that PG&E could give to us.
There are many things that
Yeah.
PG&E could have done.
But that's just one more idea to throw out there.
Absolutely, and again, if people have ideas, please email, write, come by, we're open, and we love suggestions, and we do what we can.
The other,
Thank you.
Scott?
I just wanted to give kudos to Brown's Corner for being the only gas station open, and they were very responsive when the traffic was getting out of control. We helped them for a little bit, and then they got it all together, and I think it's a great community spirit for them to have that.
And I just want to point out too that this was, I'll call it a planned event to the extent we were waiting on when it was going to happen. And when it happened, I think had it happened maybe 2 weeks later, it would have been a little cold for some folks, because as I sat there and talked to folks around town, some had no heat, some had heat, some had hot water but no heat, depending on whether you had natural gas or not. I don't know if you remember 2 years ago when they didn't shut off our power, but they shut off our natural gas. It was uncomfortable for some folks, and I think it's an opportunity for everybody to kind of take stock in that and prepare, because I think if they've said this is going to be the new normal, then I think it's an opportunity for everybody to prepare, not just for this event, but for any other emergency where you might have to be on your own. I had heard stories that when there was one that was supposed to happen in Ukiah prior to this one, that all the water got wiped out at Costco and Safeway, and supposedly, people panicked buy or whatever. So I appreciate, again, Brown's Corner being open, and honestly, I stood in line one day and decided I didn't need gas that bad, so I moved on.
I have plans for next time, it'll go a lot quicker.
So I think I just needed to get up earlier than I was going down there. Yeah.
They're like 3 and 5 in the morning.
Yeah, so, but again, I appreciate that, and I appreciate, the one thing I heard in town is that people were appreciative of what they could have. I mean, I think I said at the last council meeting, we went to the pancake breakfast at the Grange and ran into people, and everybody was pretty positive, sharing what they were doing. And I know a lot of folks that have trailers were talking about how they were doing it. I have to tell you, one day I did go to Ukiah because I had to go down and heard my bank was open, and ate at a food truck because that's what was open. And
Restaurants are good in an emergency.
so it was a brick and mortar business that had a food truck, and he was telling me he saved his product with generators, but basically was open, and the next day we had power in Willits, so but it was kind of nice to get a hot meal. And then the other kudos to the hospital, because I totally didn't want to go down there and be a pain, but it sounds like people, they didn't look at it as being a pain, and they fed the community, and I probably should have gone down there and had breakfast.
They were amazing.
So that's it.
I think I was most struck by just the level of cheerfulness people had. They were just, we don't have power, and we're a community, and we're just fine. Nobody was panicking, no one freaked out. They just made the best of it, and it was great. It was just, I felt really good about the spirit.
So for me, other than changing my legal name on there,
Yes.
otherwise...
And please help me with typos you see, please.
But I think it's important that we communicate and get it memorialized. That.
Do you need a motion?
Do we need a motion?
Can I have public comment on this?
Go ahead.
Oh, good idea.
My name's John Almeida. Been here a long time. I reviewed your letter. It is a good letter, but it doesn't address a proper fix to public safety shutoffs. The proper and only fix to this power generation is power generation at the substation in the Willits Valley. Willits is a Tier 1 area, and it does not need to have a power shutdown. Tier 2 areas and Tier 3 areas that bring power into us do need to have that. So how do you keep Tier 1 power during a public safety power shutdown? Emergency power generation at the substation on Center Valley Road. The power is shut down. We're going to continue to have PG&E for the next 10 years doing these things until they harden their grid, and that's what they're telling us. We were very lucky this time, but what happens if there's multiple fires at night and CAL FIRE can't fly? And Little Lake Fire Department is spread thin. These fires can start by the misuse of generators, portable heaters, candles, anything that people do not normally use when we have power. What about small businesses? Mary Ann Petrillo, CEO of West Business, I'm sure you know of her, you're on the board, Development Center, testified to the Board of Supervisors that if the power shutdown continues, a lot of small businesses would fail. That means more empty buildings in Willits and less tax revenue. There's a fix for this, and the city needs to include in this fix in this letter. The city of Willits needs to demand help from PG&E, CPUC, the state authorities to force PG&E to put power generation out there. So this town doesn't have to go down, because we're going to have a major problem. Everybody was expecting this time, so they were prepared. But if this becomes a regular event, people are going to get lax. And you're going to put your Little Lake Fire Department in a bad way, especially I can just see a nighttime fire going from business to business. It could end up like paradise. I want to give you an example. Made copies of this. What a containerized generation set looks like. Maybe one would work. Maybe it would take two in series. I'm going to pass those down. There's copies for everyone there. But this needs to happen, because we're going to end up having some real problems, real safety problems. And it did get down to 24 degrees during that time. And my neighbor lady stayed in bed for 5 days, elderly lady. I finally called her to see how she was doing. But she's from the old days, and she don't call anybody and bother them. So it's a real serious problem. People depend on health machines to supply air and oxygen and stuff like that.
Thank you, John.
I would like you to look into it, include it in your letter. Might take an engineer, electrical engineer. Don't let PG&E baloney you.
Yeah, actually,
to do the right thing.
sounds like at least something to throw in there, the energizing the valley. I don't know how much pull we'll have, but I think that would be.
Is that something that the council would like to have added?
I certainly wouldn't mind asking, putting it on the table there. That I know that the county offices they rented a generator, or maybe they bought one, I don't know. But it wouldn't take a horribly lot of money to actually have a supply for the whole city.
That's where grants come in.
And John, yeah, I mean, it would cost, the city can't afford it, but I think asking PG&E, asking our legislative representatives in Sacramento and so forth, there's no harm in asking, putting that out there, that this would be a wonderful,
Well, and I think John brought up a good point.
Survival of our small town.
Our fire chief did speak that the generators are a double-edged sword, that it provided you a level of comfort, but there are a lot of folks that don't know what they're doing when it comes to generators.
We lost a house out in the valley.
So
I understand it was because of a generator.
Sweet in town.
Perhaps asking that PG&E explore the I don't know if this is even possible.
Yeah.
Explore the possibility of energizing the substation as a method of keeping the city of Willits afloat.
Yes.
As we experience no wind event.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
All right. We are now on the item 4, and we have no ordinances to enact. So item 5, consent calendar, and we have only one, actually, council minutes, item A, of the October 23rd meeting. And item B, resolution accepting construction completion of Pine Street and vicinity utility project number 2019-05, and authorizing the filing of a notice of completion.
I so move.
I'll second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Would anybody from the public like to speak? If not, call for the vote.
Councilmember Connie. Yes. Marjorie
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Strong.
Yes.
Stransky.
Yes.
Madden Dees.
Yes, all right, that was quick. And included in our reports there for your reading pleasure out there, building inspection activity report, and that can be found on the website for those of you not here today. And commissions and agendas, we do meet concurrently as the Willits City Planning Commission and successor agency, but we have no business there. City manager reports and recommendations.
I have nothing other than I will not be here Thursday and Friday. It's my Thanksgiving trip to see my parents. So.
All right. Item 9, department recommendations, and we have item A, discussion possible adoption of resolution amending the fiscal year 2019-20 adopted budget to appropriate remaining fiscal year 2018-19 capital improvement project budget expenditure in the amount of $2,022,564. Thank you. That was to the general fund, transportation fund, water enterprise, wastewater enterprise, and airport fund. Thank you, June.
Mayor and the City Council's Finance Director Yu Due of the city.
You want these now or in your next discussion?
Yeah, we could just all deliver.
Just want to make sure.
Yeah. But this is a separate thing to talk about, yeah.
Oh, not this item?
This item.
Thank you.
Not yet.
This agenda items is to carry over the remaining budget for 16 capital improvement projects from fiscal year 2018-19 to fiscal year 19-20. The purpose of this is when we did the budget back in April, the numbers of the expenditures based on the estimation, and right now we almost closed the book and had a audit almost finalized, so we can chew up the capital improvement project expenditure at this moment. So we would like to carry over the remaining budget to the 1920 fiscal year, because those CIP projects actually is the multi-year projects. Some is like 2-3 years projects, so that's what we're doing here. The total projects for carry over the budget is 16. It's listed on the Exhibit A. I think most physical impact on this, it will be, there will be reduced general fund balance of $56,774. And then also the transportation 0.5% sales tax, it will reduce almost like 1.2 million around that neighborhood. And then that will drop the fund balance, estimated fund balance at June 30, 2020 to $910,000. As for the water and water funds, it will be $460,000 carryover come from the fund balance, and the wastewater will be $250,000, and then the airport will be $31,810. That's a common total of $2.1 million. So, any questions on this?
The way I would characterize it, this is just kind of cleaning things up then.
Yes, yes.
So, any questions up here? Come on, manager, numbers lady.
I met with June yesterday, and it is just a matter of moving dollars that weren't spent in 2018 into this.
And just to clarify to the public, for anyone who wonders why we're not asking questions, many of us have, or all of us have the opportunity to talk to Jeannie before the meeting to make sure we understand what's being presented. So we're not asking questions because we don't have them. They've already been answered and cleared for us.
All right. I guess I only see one member of the public there, and he's packing up to leave. Any questions? All right.
I move approval of this requires a motion to approve, right? I move approval of the staff recommendation.
Do I have a second?
Yes.
Larry seconds. All right. Any further discussion up here? Anybody from the public? Otherwise, I'll call for the vote.
Councilmember Khan?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Strong.
Yes.
Stransky.
Yes.
Mayor Gonzalez.
Yes. All right, thank you, June.
All right, it's the second one. What's in front of you is the summary of cities, kind of like a checkbook-wise presentation as of September 30th, 2019. What we have is during the budget season, because we have structural budget deficits, so I've been asked by the City Council to do a quarterly review on city financials every quarter, and it was showing beginning balance of the money we have and how much cash in, how much cash out we spend it on, and then what's left over by quarterly, September 30th. This is the first one. What's in front of you is very long sheets because I've broken down by different fund. And there's a total actually at the end. The column that will be the total. The first column is the revenue. That means it's money come in. For total city have money come in as of September 30th, it's $1.6 million combined all the funds. The biggest come in actually is from the water, which is $958,000 for first quarter. And the second column will be row section will be expenditures, and they will broken down by what we spend it on. Salaries and benefits, insurance, professional services, contracts, lease and rent, maintenance, repair, supplies, trainings, utilities, and then summarize the total expenditure, the money out is a $3.1 million. So that leave us, money in, money out, leave us actually some money out about $2,018,437. So that's for the first quarter. And we had a beginning balance of all funds together for $13,987,313. With our adjusted $14,000, as of September 30th, city have $11,654,381. So this is the overview of like a checkbook wise, what we have, what money in, money out, and then what's this end up at September 30th. Yes.
And can you clarify the how revenues come in and how that reflects on this statement?
Yeah, currently in general fund revenue is because they come in not like a monthly basis, they come in as a big lump chunk. For example, like property taxes, we all pay property taxes. You're willing to two payments, one in January, one in probably April, sometimes due. So in turn is after citizens pay the taxes, and then we turn around, the city gonna get allotment of the percentage of the taxes. Revenue. So at this moment, in general fund, the tax is only $110,000, which is that's only sales tax, because those taxes doesn't come in month by month, but there is no any other sort of property taxes or anything at this moment.
Did you have a question, Nash?
Yeah, I know that on the revenue side, it comes in chunks and delayed and all that, so that a percent isn't very relevant. But for the expenditure side, especially on the general fund at least, I would appreciate having a percent spent to date of those estimated. And you had it in our retreat. Yes. So I kind of looked at that, but the numbers weren't all clear to me. But overall, what it looked like for the general fund, total expenditures of, it's a little bit different number because things are changing. But anyway, it was more than 25% then of what we budgeted for the whole year. And I just wanted to make a sort of observation that that's an important number to be looking at. On the expense side, we are shooting for, at the end of the year, we don't overspend our budget.
Right. And then mainly the overspending is because of city's insurance is paying one lump sum and in the month of July. Okay. And also CalPERS and fund liability is almost $700,000 is also due in July 1st. Those are annual payments. And also there are bond payments that's also due in September. It's like they're also also periodically payments, which is not evening out.
Okay,
So
that's good to
stuff
know.
like this, yeah.
So that explains that. So the actual ongoing monthly type expenses, we are on budget.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, okay, good.
I think, actually, I have another sheet that give to the staff, but didn't give to the city council because it was stacked thick, and then it's not for, I can provide to you after the meeting. The overall, right now, we're on about like 29% out of, instead of 25%, and the mainly is because of, those two factors, and unfunded liability, the 700,000 payments, and also paying REMF, all those insurance payments. Those are annuals.
But in terms of our department payments, how are we doing?
What is it?
Our department expenditures?
Same thing, and then the only thing is we all under budget at this moment, and actually I give you the breaking down by department details by each individual accounts. And then the only thing is out of the budget at this moment is a retirement. You can see the retirement line is above the budget, and then that means because that's the unfunded liability for the CalPERS. And the insurance the same way. Yeah, you will see those numbers are like 80% or 85% or something like that.
Yeah. And by the way, it's really good to know how well you're tracking all this. And it's just nice for me. I like to have it all spelled out for me just personally, but I'm just so thrilled to have your expertise and your professionalism on this. It's just great.
Yeah, those are just the overview by the fund level, and if you want to go in details as to what we exactly spending on certain line items, and then I had those spreadsheets and I can provide to you. Well, I welcome to public one if they want to inquire information. I have all that available. I just don't think we have like short time in here. We can go over line by line. So that's
right. And the bad news is that even though we're sticking with our budget, we're doing good on that. It's a deficit budget, and there's no windfalls out there looking like they're going to manifest, and so structurally we have to look at some ways to fix that.
On the next quarter report, one of the things I want to point out, even with the insurance and then the unfunded liability, those retirement is already paid, so we can leave that alone. But we have another unexpected, the bills coming actually from PG&E. City just get, I've mentioned before, get $80,000 power bill just now. And yeah, normally it's about 20-some, but now I just got a bill for 80,000. So we require it.
No, it's our overall PG&E bill for the city.
Yeah, for the months. For the months, it's like 80,000. So we're expecting our utility bill will go up. Right now, the first quarter, you will see the utility lines is like about $100,000 for citywide we pay utilities. But that one bill, that's include the internet and also phones and everything, water and that type of thing, all include in this line.
Yeah.
But with PG&E on next quarter, I was expecting they will, the bill from them alone is going to increase. Yeah, that is what we're looking at right now. Bad news. Sorry. Do you have any questions?
I don't expect you to have the answer, but if you could bring back the answer. We know that the city had to start paying the water enterprise for water that the city was using. And I'm curious what that amount is that's coming from general fund to water for city use. And then what departments is that coming from in terms of a dollar amount? So how much are we spending on watering grass versus flushing toilets at City Hall, that sort of thing? I'm just curious because we haven't heard about that number for a while. If you could bring that back later.
Oh, sure, yes, I will. But that will be involved in that one number, like a 13,000. If you see, that's the part of that number. It just roll into PG&E and the water and the
I'm
telephones.
Curious how much.
Yes. Yeah, we'll have that broken down. Yes.
Any other questions up here for Jim? All right. Thank you, Jim. All right. Human resources?
Did we have, I'm sorry, we didn't have any an amendment to approve there on that or not?
No. Oh,
Did we?
we already did? Not for the,
Oh, that was the first
last
item.
one.
Okay.
The first item we
got
already
it.
approved.
Threw me off.
I'm sorry.
The second item was the quarterly report that you had asked for.
Okay.
You're in
Stevenson, your HR department. And I did want to make sure you did hear June say that we're under budget, so HR is way under budget. Okay, so what I would like to do is finally have something nice to say. Just a reminder, the City Hall will be closed for the Thanksgiving holiday next Thursday and Friday. And it's unfortunate that Brown's Corner left, because one of the things that I wanted to mention is not only were they the only gas station, they also lowered their the prices for gas.
Yeah.
So there were other places in Ukiah that were gouging people at $5 a gallon, and it was duly necessary. So I wanted to go over the city manager update. I commandeered the newsletter.
She didn't let me even do anything.
No.
She said it was hers.
You already stole my thunder today.
I'm sorry.
So anyway, I'd like to take the opportunity to speak on behalf of city staff for this monthly newsletter from an HR perspective. I'm sure you're already aware that our staff is simply quite amazing, and in times of need, we really shine. So let's start trying to pat ourselves on the back. Our folks don't toot their own horns when they demonstrate exceptional service, yet they do it daily. So please take a moment to indulge me, and I'll continue. Our first PSPS, which was an unprecedented event, is thankfully behind us. Make no mistake, it won't be our last. One of the key factors for the city experiencing minimal issues during this challenging time was the fact that our city staff was prepared. From the onset of the news from PG&E notifying us of possible PSP events, Stephanie, department heads, Fire Chief Chris Wilkes met numerous times developing an action plan to ensure our water, wastewater plants, airports, city hall, city parks, streets operated safely without interruption. We developed contingency plans and communication lines and posted information on the city website and Facebook page. The message was be safe, be prepared, and stay calm. As a result, City Hall was open for business as normal. All departments ran smoothly, and we received an abundance of positive feedback from the community from our efforts. Unfortunately, there are some people who will look back and think exclusively in terms of what went wrong or the things they should have done. Yes, we should make sure to improve our circumstances, address any problems and learn from them, but it's just as important to be able to appreciate the things that did work. Stephanie has always encouraged each of us to foster an attitude around reaching beyond the status quo. She empowers employees to focus on solving complex workplace challenges and then help each other implement resolutions. Trust is important. Accountability and allowing people to use their talents allows everyone to communicate without fear or retribution. Leadership is creating an environment in which people want to be part of the organization and not just work for the organization. We are a family, we love this community, and we are proud to say we live here. Throughout this event, the department heads gathered to discuss projects, issues, and strategized on possible solutions. I think it's fair to say our employees are composed of people who are bright and outgoing. They are great at what they do, and they do it consistently, so the majority of the time you don't give the inner workings of what it takes to run the city a second. We are proud to say each and every city employee stepped up, trusted each other to do their job without exception, and offered a helping hand wherever it was needed. Leadership is a choice. The choice is available to each of us, regardless of what level, what industry, or what time it is. I'd like to take a moment to thank all of our employees for going above and beyond, working around the clock and keeping up to speed on the latest news to ensure our community was safe. We would like to recognize several exemplary practices of leadership that was demonstrated by some of our employees. In our water department, as Stephanie had mentioned, Justin Vigil, who is our acting chief water plant operator, he got called in at the night and he ended up sleeping at the water plant to ensure he was available for any issues, worked daily along with his co-workers to ensure our water was running. Clarence Tava and Justin worked throughout the nights refilling generators along with making sure water quality remained top-notch and keeping the water tanks full. Utility Superintendent Scott Herman, Public Works Superintendent Bill Wilson made sure water, wastewater, and airport generators were operational prior to and during the event. They received and dispersed 500 to 600 gallons of fuel per day. In our wastewater department, all of our wastewater plant operators work diligently throughout the day and night to ensure our wastewater treatment plant functions properly on generated power. They never missed a beat. The department lent mutual aid to Bechtel Senior Homes, as Stephanie had mentioned, using our back truck so they could empty their lift station in order to prevent a sanitary sewer overflow and giving them enough time to recover until the power was restored. Chief Wastewater Plant Operator Daniel Curtis offered assistance to our neighbors in Lake County at Northwest Regional Wastewater by lending them a generator when their 3 generators failed to keep the power on at North Lakeport Water Plant when their main generator failed. This partnership allowed them to be able to keep all of North Lakeport supplied with water during the PSPS. Wastewater Department and transported an extra generator for them to use when their 3 generators failed, to mention that. The police. Chief Warnock worked patrol alongside his officers on any issues that arose and successfully worked in sync with Little Lake Fire on the 3 fires that occurred during the PSPS event. And on a personal note, he also let me use the women's facilities since I had no water or hot water for 4 days. In Public Works, Bill Wilson, Public Works Superintendent, worked tirelessly, keeping generators going and fueled, airport running smooth. As is his nature, Bill was here early every morning, making his rounds, checking on our parks, facilities, the airport, and City Hall. He was also here late into the night, filling generators, helping out wherever he was needed. He also barbecued food for all city staff on day 4 so that we could enjoy a hot meal. In City Hall, Stephanie worked around the clock, monitoring the situation, attending numerous conference calls with the state and then again with the county, and kept all of our staff appraised of all PSPS information. When PG&E chose not to use any of Willits' facilities as a community resource center, making the nearest CRC in Ukiah. With only 1 gas station open, traveling to Ukiah on a daily basis was not a viable option for many people of our community. Stephanie made the decision to open up the community center to all residents and visitors to use as a charging station, have access to restrooms, and come out of the cold. She bought puzzles and games to entertain the children and provided hot coffee. We saw people of all ages sharing stories, coming together as a community. Actually, one gentleman brought in a guitar and started to play for us. Stephanie bought food for her staff out of her own pocket on day 4 so we can enjoy a hot meal. She made herself available to residents, businesses, and visitors alike to answer their questions, give them an update on the situation, and calm their fears and frustrations. She encouraged us to think out of the box when resources were slim. Deputy Manager, City Clerk Kathy Moorhead was also worked around the clock along with Stephanie, attending calls, updating Facebook because mine would not load, assisting department heads and council with whatever they needed. As we all know, Kathy knows the majority of people in our community, and she calmly took the calls and answered all of their questions, ensuring everyone that City Hall, our PD, water, wastewater, and airport were all running smoothly. Kathy was our rock. Jim Robbins, our community development specialist, who is our grant writer, he stayed on top of posting information on our website on the weekends and after hours. He's also a certified ham radio operator and was willing to step in if needed. Mercy Villegas, she is our school intern. Because the schools were closed, she took it upon herself to come in and do whatever was needed. So we're instilling a serious work ethic in our youth. Every role at the city is important, and we all did what we do, giving it 110%. Our community felt the impacts of having the power shut off, such as school closed, no heat, limited access to food, gas, and other resources. And as you all know, our employees live in this community, so they were experiencing the same thing. But not one customer was without clean, fresh water or access to the police, parks, a safe workplace to charge phones, and City Hall. And that's why living in this town is pretty cool. Lastly, a time for celebration. During this PSPS event, we one of our employees, Nicole Caldwell, she's a wastewater plant operating 3, welcomed our newest member to the family. And it's the birth of her granddaughter, Ariana. If you take a look at that beautiful face. She was born on 10/26/19, the first day of the shut-off, at 6.5 pounds, 7 ounces, and 18 inches long. And she's a cutie. Look at that smile. And we want to congratulate again Nikish. This baby is adorable. So simple acts of kindness were displayed throughout the community. We appreciate the council. You were out there. You were talking to the community members, offering support, and people recognize that. And there were just so many proud moments. I just wanted to list a few, and I want to thank all of our city employees for everything that they do, because we are amazing.
Thank you, Karen. Chief, do you have anything? Dusty?
I was like John Alameda's neighbor. I just stayed in bed. No, I was here too. Just a couple things. I'll be attending the Sherwood Valley Band of Pomo Indians Tribal Council meeting on the 18th November at 6 p.m. Nothing specific. Again, it's just keeping an open line of communication with the tribe, sort of being the liaison between us. I'll certainly share with them some of the fun things happening in Willits and keep them updated and answer any questions they might have. If anything significant comes out of that, I'll be sure to report back to the council. There was mention earlier by our city manager, Kelly, a request for proposals related to future PSPS resiliency. Just a little bit more details on the grant that we were successful in submitting for $149,000. The project's going to include upgrading our existing solar array on the roof from a 8.2 kilowatt system to a 20 kilowatt system, so more than doubling the size of the system, as well as $52,000 to spend on a battery storage system, as well as a number of other equipment to support that system. Again, in total, it was about $149,000. I want to thank Mr. John Takas with North Bay Solar Electric. This is the gentleman that donated and installed the solar panels on the roof. Initially, we got word of this opportunity, I think, on a Sunday with like a turnaround of just a few days. And so John actually took the time over the weekend to get some information to us. What this system would do if we're successful in getting the funds and implementing it is, should we have a power shutoff, the system would automatically revert to the battery system. We also would be able to avoid significant future fees along with renting generators if we were able to install the system. The other neat thing is that we would have a small generator that we could still use to recharge the battery system. And so what that means is even if we didn't have sun, even if we had a very long extended power outage, we'd be able to keep City Hall operating under normal functions, open the community center like we did before. So we're glad for the opportunity, and we'll let you know if we get back some positive news on that. So that was it. Thanks.
Excuse me, Dusty, did you want to talk about your meeting regarding Highway 20?
I certainly can. Tomorrow, Caltrans has organized a walking tour of Blosser Lane and the intersection of Blosser Lane and Highway 20. I think the council is familiar that that's a dangerous intersection, especially for school children that would cross that street and head over to Blosser School. It's dangerous enough to the point that I think the school doesn't even allow you to ride your bike to school if you do have to cross at that point. And so this has been a safety issue that's been identified in numerous planning documents that the city has sponsored, MCOG has sponsored in the past. It shows up as a top priority in many of these documents. And to Caltrans' credit, they have taken it upon themselves to organize this walking tour. It'll be Thursday, tomorrow. I have the time in front of me. 2:30. Thank you. Certainly council members are welcome to attend, or 2 council members are welcome to attend. And what is specifically interested is one of the potential solutions they're looking for at that location, the location being Blosser Lane Highway 20 intersection, is a roundabout. And this would be beneficial both for slowing traffic down as it's coming into the city of Willits there. It would also provide hopefully a safe crossing for the school children, as well as an opportunity to put like some type of gateway monument maybe up as well. So cross your fingers on that one.
I know that in the last couple of years, roundabouts have become more in vogue with Caltrans than before.
Yeah.
I think we brought this up like 20 and then 10 years ago, and I think the last time we had a safety meeting, I think you were already on here, we got the little blinky light, the speed sensor light.
Well, this is the first time I've actually seen them put a design down on paper.
And has
So-
the school been notified so that they're part of this walking tour?
Yes.
And we know for a fact that they got the memo and that they...
Yeah, Alexis Kelso with Caltrans, and I'll give her credit because she actually reached out to city staff, including myself, to make sure we were capturing all the stakeholders. And she already had a lot of the right people, including Walk and Bike Mendocino and Tina Tyler O'Shea with Department of Health, and had reached out to both the principal and Mark Westerberg.
Thank you.
Larry, or Councilmember Stransky, sorry.
It's at 2:30 on Highway 20?
It's at 2:30, and we're going to be meeting at the Blosser Elementary School.
It's expected to last until 4.
That's
What?
tomorrow?
It's expected to last until 4.
Okay.
Walking from Blosser to Highway 20.
Blosser Elementary,
And that's tomorrow.
tomorrow at 2:30.
Yes, tomorrow.
All right. Thank you, Dusty.
Thank you, Dusty.
Scott, do you want to
Thank you.
say
Scott, I
something?
did have something. Scott Warnock, Chief of Police. MCOG received a grant for fire vulnerability. Dusty, help me. Bye, Dusty.
He's coming back.
Preparation type thing. I had this all planned. Tomorrow at 9 o'clock, Chief Wilson and I have been invited by them. We're going to Ukiah to do the first meeting of this fire vulnerability stakeholders meeting to plan evacuations, what ifs, et cetera, and so forth. So I think it'll be a good thing for us. It'll also be incorporated into our emergency operation plan.
You're the last person left standing here besides this one's here. You got anything?
I'm in prepared to say.
Okay. Dolores, you've been waiting patiently. Do you have anything? Kathy?
Yes, I would like to actually thank Karen. She always says such kind words about us, that she is always here for us. She keeps us going. She gives us encouragement to move on, even when we are at wit's end. And I'd just like to say thank you. And she provides us with great goodies during meetings.
I want to point something out. I think you might have said next week, and she said next week, but I think it's not next week. That's Thanksgiving. Am I getting that wrong?
Oh,
It's
it was the
following week.
Yeah.
I do early Thanksgiving week.
Oh, okay. So it's the following week.
No, it's the following week. No, I do.
Oh, okay.
do
I just
early.
want to point that out because everybody's like, why are they open and not open?
No, it's too expensive to fly during Thanksgiving.
Yeah, so, okay.
I have a couple of things there. Yesterday, the city was served with a small claims lawsuit by Mr. Glenn Neutron, who had previously filed a claim against the city. The council rejected that claim several months ago. He had a 6-month period to pursue a lawsuit, and he did apparently file that. That was, the city was not aware of it until yesterday. The document says that the trial is tomorrow. And so they clearly did not give us the required notice that we're entitled to. And Kathy has talked with the paralegal about that. And the paralegal has assured Kathy that she would cause it to be continued to another date so that we can prepare. So I hope to give you more information at your December meeting about the status of that issue. And the other thing I wanted to tell you was that When the city and Brook Trails settled their lawsuit in 2015, they agreed that Brook Trails would pay $22,000 every month until the period ending June 30, 2019, and that they would engage an auditor who would examine the city's books for the 3 preceding fiscal years, review the flow records of the flow of Brook Trail and its contribution to the plant compared to that of the city. What is their percentage of flow, as well as reviewing all of the city's operating expenses. And that auditor would prepare a report that the parties would consider in negotiating a new rate to go forward retroactively July 1 of this year into the future. We engaged Pacenti Brinker, a firm in Santa Rosa. The cost is to be shared equally by the parties. They were somewhat delayed in preparing their work because we didn't have the data that they needed. It took more time than we anticipated. Anyway, we have received a draft report, and it's only a draft. It's not in final form. We have reviewed it. Mr. Neary and the district manager have reviewed it, and I'm told that they have engaged a consultant who is studying it, and we should get their comments soon.
Okay.
And that's all. I'm not at
okay.
liberty to discuss the contents of it. It's a draft.
Okay. All right.
Is there any sense of the timing at which this would come back to our council and their board to review a proposal?
We're ready to go. We're waiting on Brook Trails to tell us and the auditor what comments they have so that the auditor can put his report in a final form, and then we can begin the process of negotiating a rate.
And are they not paying anything until we determine a retroactive to July 1st?
So they're continuing to pay the $22,000 a month.
But it can change retroactively once we get the agreement, is that?
Right, okay. So anyway, more news to come on that.
Thank you. All right. City Council Committee Boards and Agency Reports. Do we have anything?
Museum Advisory Board meets on Monday.
The which one?
Museum Advisory Board.
Okay.
MTA has a special meeting specifically regarding to a potential grant, and we meet next Monday in Ukiah at 10 a.m. Should be a short meeting. And then I have a question about Revi Ed. One of the items that we're discussing is signage, and the council allocated an amount of money that we want to spend on signage. And the Revi Ed hasn't moved forward with figuring out what we're going to do with signage. And in looking deeper into the project, it's really hard to do something with it when there isn't the financial support. I'm wondering, does the council want Revi Ed to continue to work on additional signage without the backing of funding? Or would we rather see some other community group take over, leading the way on maybe a business group or other group in the community take the lead on organizing some kind of fund to make this signage happen? It just feels like we're spinning our wheels with
no money.
With no money, and it's not going to go anywhere unless, the only way I can really see it happening is if we have a community partner to take the lead on it, because we're not allocating any funds, so what's the point of continuing to talk about signage if the council isn't supporting that with additional funding? So I just was hoping to get a little...
Are you talking about the green highway signage, or are you talking about something else?
I'm talking about
the Wayfair signs.
The Wayfair signs, and potentially the Highway 20. I guess I'm asking for direction towards Revi Ed. Do you want us to continue to work on a sign that we haven't yet come up with funds for Highway 20? And do you want the Revi Ed committee for signage to continue to work on wayfinding signing, even though we have no money out there? What's the council's?
Well, I'm torn because we don't have the money.
Or do we want to look for a community partner to take the lead on that?
You know, I would be game to explore that, just to see what's out there.
I don't feel like partnerships have been really very well received or looked into, and so I really feel like at this point the business community needs to consider taking that under their own wing.
That's where I was leaning.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to know how the council felt, because I feel like we're just spinning our wheels, going nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, I would love to put city money towards it, but we're spending at a deficit, and so it's... Larry?
I'm interested in seeing what their Revive Ed came up with. First of all, even though we didn't have the money, have they come up with any kind of
We came up with a design. We came up with how many we wanted, but again, we come back to the idea of you can't move forward on a project that you have no funding for.
Well, the first thing is, did you present it to us at all to look at as a, you know, as a, this is what direction that we're going or anything? If you did, I missed it.
I think Greta and I both discussed it at the budget meeting when we had the roundtable discussion, and we were deciding priorities and how much we wanted to spend on signage, and ultimately we ended up only funding the, Dusty can elaborate, but the signage on the highway itself at each of the interchanges, but we didn't fund for this, knowing that we have a really tight budget.
So this is a signage that's going to go on Highway 20?
Potentially Highway 20 or in town.
Signs that basically would say...
Downtown.
Downtown this way. Well, and I know that there's been some requests from, at least informally, I've been approached from some of the veterans groups wanting some sort of signage, and I told them, I go, we don't have the money, but I'm open to private groups, you know, raising money for that sort of signage and working with us in Caltrans. But again, it's not something we're going to do for them, I said, because we don't have the money.
So maybe direction would be that we find a leader within one of these other community groups that'll take it on, and if they need the assistance of the city, whether it be to mounting, you know, putting something in the ground on city property or whatever, then they would come before Dusty or the council and ask for permission to support that particular aspect of the installation of the project or whatnot. I don't know. Those are just some thoughts.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's...
Yeah. Okay.
All right, any other?
Yeah, tomorrow morning, I'm going to be attending the Sonoma Clean Power Board. I'm the alternate, so this is only the second time I will have actually attended a board meeting, because the main representative is Jonathan Torres from Point Arena. But this should be a very interesting Sonoma Clean Power meeting tomorrow morning. They're going to be, among other things, talking about what PG&E did and the PSPS and how that affects all of our communities, both in Sonoma and Mendocino County. And there's a lot of other pretty interesting things on the agenda, and I'm going to try to catch up and learn all about it. And then in the afternoon, on my way back, I'm going to stop at the EDFC, Economic Development and Financing Corporation, which meets tomorrow at 2 o'clock. And I think we're continuing to do the same things that I've talked about before that we're, that are on EDFC's agenda. And next week on Thursday at 10 o'clock, the MSWA board, the Mendocino Solid Waste Management Authority, will be meeting here in the same spot. And that is actually, we're going to have a presentation about zero waste, and we're going to hear from some like public interest groups, as well as some of the other communities that are working on reducing the waste stream and trying to maximize diversions that are for public uses. So those are all three kind of important meetings on which I'm representing our city, and I'll have to try to remember all of that happens and report it back in December.
Larry, do you have anything?
Yeah, I have MCOG. MCOG, the advisory committee, TAC, recommended that we have a 2% increase in the bike and pedestrian program, and the regional transportation improvement program also. And these are just up for, we saw the figures for the first time, and they will continue this next time, and in December they will vote to allot them or whatever they're going to do, get the money. And so as soon as that happens, I will get it to Greta, because Greta is going to go in my place, because I will be gone out of the state to Thanksgiving, and I won't get back in time, so Greta will do that. Yes.
I want to make sure I understand what you said. Is MCOG making a statement that they're going to financially support?
No, it says that what we're going to do is we said it's okay to give them 2% increase to the bike and pedestrian.
What do you mean? Financial?
Financial.
Okay. So 2% more funding will go, is that 2% of your budget, or is it 2% more than what they're
There's a
currently
percentage that the state allots for bike and pedestrians.
Project,
And
right?
what?
Projects.
Yeah, projects. And so what they said is that we're going to increase that by 2%.
So it's not to any one group, but to potential projects that they would fund.
Okay, I'm just curious, the 2%. Yeah, it's hard.
I do not have the money, because nobody said the money, because Fort Bragg has always got it in the past, because they have somebody that always goes to these meetings. And so it's never come to my knowledge of how much money that they got. It's a pretty good, considerable amount of money, but we have never got anything on bike or pedestrian at all.
And knowing that we have a new potential walking and bike trail coming up, I'm thinking, how can we ensure that we're at the table?
That's a totally different thing.
Well, Walk and Bike Mendocino is aware of this, and they're participating in discussions, then certainly it can impact our community.
Well, then we need to go to MCOG and tell them.
Okay.
I like it.
I'm on
Greta's going to
LAFCO.
be down there.
I'm on LAFCO, and they canceled the meeting because of the PSPs and all of that. I think it was approaching, and so I think they canceled it. And then the power came on, so we could have probably had a meeting, but at that point they had noticed everybody. So we're due to meet in December. And League of Cities hasn't met. They actually did meet at the league meeting down south in Long Beach. And I have also been reappointed to the Law Enforcement Policy Committee. So that means a couple more trips to Sacramento. So, go ahead.
I had a PS on the Solid Waste Management Board. Back in May or June, they looked at a draft joint powers agreement modification, or almost a completely new joint powers agreement between the four jurisdictions that are part of MSWA. And at the time, there was a whole big question about whether we were going to privatize the management of MSWA, and that kind of overshadowed the consideration of the new bylaws for joint powers. And then it kind of slid into being approved by Ukiah and Fort Bragg, and is about to be approved by the county. And it wasn't handled very well. It wasn't ever really made clear that we were moving ahead on this revised JPA agreement. But it is now clear that everybody else is on board, and they want us to consider it. So Stephanie and I had a conversation with each other, and also with some of the other jurisdictions, and we're going to put that on the December agenda. It'll be both an approval of an increase in the tipping fee that MSWA charges for waste brought to them, and also a new JPA agreement. And it isn't a perfect agreement, but the previous one was I think it was dated 1993 or something. It's not, doesn't reflect reality. This one reflects reality, and there's a couple things that we weren't thrilled with, but it's basically keeping up the official authorization to do this. And also, it makes it clear that the agency is going to operate based on the income it gets from these tipping fees rather than input of money from the different jurisdictions. So it is a good thing that we're not having to pay out of city funds for MSWA services. Anyway, I just want to make sure that you all know that's going to come up in December, and you'll have a staff report.
And that is actually rolled into Solid Waste of Willits pursuant to their agreement with us. Every year they come with a cost of living increase. That is going to be wrapped into the cost of living increase. We were going to try to get it in for this agenda, but there was June caught a slight computational error on their part. So we sent it back to them. And so he's revised that sheet, and the whole thing's going to come in December.
All right, so city council member reports and recommendations. Anything else?
I've got 2 food and welfare.
Start on that side, we'll work our way over.
I just wanted to report that the traffic signal at Commercial and Main has been, the timing has been changed so that pedestrians now have a lead time when they cross the street. The lights stay red for both directions of vehicles, but the green hand flashes for pedestrians to go. I took advantage of that tonight on my bicycle and got through the intersection before the lights turned green, which was awesome. So thank you to Caltrans for making that happen. It's been a long time effort for the city to try and get them to change the timing. And I also wanted to thank Andrea from our engineering department who stayed on that and continued to persist asking the questions. So.
Oh, that's good news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a member from the community ask about that during the last public comment. So it's done.
And that brings a question up that was often asked during the PSP. You know, Ukiah's lights were all blinking or not working at all. And here Willits had traffic lights that were on, and everybody wanted to know, why were the lights still on? There's generators on each of the...
So I think what the deal was those traffic lights are still property of Caltrans.
Okay.
And so they put generators on them. Ukiah owns their own, and they didn't.
Will we have generators after the relinquishment?
That is a really good question.
Well, we would technically, I think, at the south
Can we try to
end,
negotiate those generators to
I
say?
know.
potentially 20 in Maine, because part of that will still be theirs,
Yeah,
but
That's theirs.
Commercial and Sherwood will be ours. So,
It just was nice. I was in Ukiah when the power went out, and it was so dark. The lights weren't even working, and I got to Willits, and here we were lit up.
yeah, they
It just
had,
literally.
and they had signs everywhere over there that said, please stop at the stop signs, or, you know. So,
I have 2 good and welfares. Is the right time? Or should I wait?
any other council member reports? Otherwise, we'll go to good and welfare.
I guess it qualifies as a report. I brought this up at the retreat, and I want to check out if there's any other council member who would like to revisit our compensation for council members. We approved a slight raise. It's not like a lot of money, but instead of $100 per month, we raised our rate to $200 a month to have the privilege of serving on the city council. And that was done when we thought our budget was looking good, back about January. So I would like to propose that we go back to $100 a month for council members and $200 for the mayor, starting January. And I wanted to ask if we could put that on the agenda. Even if you don't necessarily know how you feel about it yet, I'd like
You know
it
what,
on the agenda.
I'll be the second person to ask that it come back.
Okay, good.
So,
Are we going to vote on that next time?
Yes, I guess so. I can
Okay.
bring it back.
So, thank you.
all right, so another good and welfare?
Yes. Some community members took it upon themselves for Halloween, which I thought was absolutely wonderful, that it was grassroots. What are we going to do in our community? And they pulled off the trunk and treat across the street. And I was curious from police chief if there were, I was there, I didn't see any incidents.
The only problems were because cars were on the street, kids were running out into the street. There was a few almost hits that we observed. So maybe next time we do it, we can get a encroachment permit and close the streets.
Okay, that's a good idea. I didn't see that. I saw most people had their chairs sitting close to the sidewalk, but I'm sure there were a few kids that
Excited?
Yeah, excited. But I was really overall pleased that people stepped up and the community received it really well, and it was exciting. And then the last item is don't forget Small Business Saturday. I know many people with the PSPs took a hit with their own refrigerators, the loss of food, but businesses also lost thousands of dollars being closed, and even if they hadn't, business in Willits is hard, so just encouraging everybody. There's great deals to be had in Willits. It's not just about buying a product, it's about the experience that you get of shopping local, personalized service. You can find some really great values and unique items, and so don't forget Small Business Saturday. Check out each person's Facebook page or website and come say hi.
Yeah, and I wanted to just again mention that Willits Economic Localization is having a fall celebration gathering, and it's this Sunday, November 17th at 4 p.m. At the Willits Environmental Hub, which is just south of Mariposa Market. And if any of you didn't get a copy of the newsletter or want a little reminder of that gathering, it's potluck, but don't not come even if you don't have a potluck. Just come because we're going to have plenty of food, and there'll be some music and some poetry, and we'll also have a presentation from Ellen Drell regarding the county climate advisory committee and how people can plug in both locally and also the county committees to make our county and our city a leader in reducing our carbon footprint and being ready for all of the disruptions that happen because of climate. So that includes emergency preparedness. I think that they're going to have a whole bunch of subcommittees on various aspects of it, like agriculture, forestry, emergency preparedness, and so forth. So people in the community who want to be involved in that, come on Sunday and then sign up to get involved. Anybody want newsletters? Great. I had a few the other day, but I didn't. That one? Okay.
All right, so Ron Moorhead couldn't be here today. He's feeling under the weather, so I'm going to do this under good welfare. This Friday, November 15th, is Chamber Mixer at the North Center Mendocino College, 5 to 7 p.m. in cooperation with North County Friends of Mendocino County and Mendocino College Foundation. And speaking of holiday tree lighting, December 7th is the Christmas holiday tree lighting celebration following Roots of Motor Power Saturday event at the museum, singing Christmas and holiday carols and tree lighting 4:30 until dark. So there we go. All right, I guess at this point I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, everybody.